Hey, this is John from Whiskey Myers, and you're listening to Walk the Floor.
I'm walking the floor over you.
Walking the floor.
I'm walking the floor. Walking the floor over you.
Hola, senors and senoritas. This is Chris Shiflett, and you are listening to another fine edition of Walking the Floor. You can probably tell by my deep, sultry tones that I'm a little under the weather this week. Was out last weekend with my wife on a romantic getaway, doing a little bit of traveling down to old Mexico, and I don't know, brought something back, man. I'm feeling it, but I'm getting through it, and I'm here podcasting because I got to bounce this episode down because it's so great. We'll get to that in a minute. In case you haven't heard, I put out a new single just a little over a week ago. It's called Black Top White Lines. Please go stream it wherever you listen to music. It's out everywhere. And if you're feeling generous, save it to your playlist. Because some people say that helps. I don't know. It's all a bit of a mystery. Can't hurt, right? Just save it to a playlist. How hard is that? Do your old buddy Shifty a solid, man. Black Top White Lines. And if you're really bored, you know, I started a TikTok page, and I've been doing some like guitar tutorials over there and answering questions. It's a hoot. Just get over there and have a look, would you? All right, let's talk about our buddies at Zounds.com. Did you know that Zounds.com started way back in 1996? Yeah, when they were just a little retail shop. Since that time, they've grown to become one of the biggest and most badass online musical instrument retailers on planet Earth. And they are entirely staffed by musicians, just like you and me. So they speak the language, and they know the gear. All right, Zounds.com. Okay, let's get to today's interview. All right, this week I had the pleasure of sitting down with Mr. John Jeffers, lead guitar player for the band Whiskey Myers, who are out on the road right now touring behind their latest record, Tornillo. It's fantastic. If you haven't listened, you should. Initially, it was going to be John and Cody both, but Cody was feeling under the weather, so took that as an opportunity to just jam up the front end of this interview with a lot more questions about guitars and amps and pedals and, you know, just guitar stuff. Because we're guitar players. That's what we do. All right, I hope you dig it. This is John Jeffers from Whiskey Myers on Walking the Floor.
When I sit down to play, swing low, sweet chariot, amazing grace.
Hey, man.
Hey, how are you?
Good, dude. How are you?
I'm good. Good. Oh, fuck yeah, man. Thanks for doing it. I've been wanting to interview you guys for a long time.
Heck yeah, likewise, dude. Proud to be here.
Yeah. I mean, I was bummed to hear that Cody couldn't join us, but
Yeah.
that also just frees us up to discuss guitars that much more, right?
I'm in, dude. I'm in.
To that end, I saw I was looking at a little bit of your rig rundown.
Oh, cool.
And a couple things jumped out at me. One being your awesome wall of Voxes, which I love. I was wondering if we could dig into that a little bit because it looked like you had 4 AC30s and 2 heads, or was I seeing that wrong? Or those cabinet? Like what is that configuration?
Yeah, you're correct. So I started out running one side for lead and the other side for rhythm. And I was using 2 volume pedals.
Oh.
So I would blend in leads whenever I needed them. And yeah,
So they're both on at the same time, and you're sort of
correct.
using a volume pedal to kind of A/B blend them. Whoa!
Exactly, which was pretty unique, and we had that for a while. And then, of course, one of my heads went down. I didn't have my other one. Then it turned into one head and running one. And now that's back where I'm at again. My head went down again. We're in Kalamazoo. So my backup to my backup was down, and now my backup's down. So I'm down to one.
I don't think I've ever heard of that as a setup. Did you invent that, or did you bite that
I
off
hope
somebody?
so. I just totally made it up. Yeah, and I was telling my engineer, I was like, dude, how can I have this idea in my head that I don't know of anybody that's done it, but can we do that? We just created it. As far as I don't know, nobody else has done it.
Yeah, that's fucking badass. That is very cool.
It probably sounded like shit, I'm sure, but
Something tells me it didn't. If listening to your records, I haven't seen you guys live, but if listening to your records is any indication, I bet it sounded fucking fantastic. I'm a Vox man myself.
I know that. I do know that.
Yeah, running with I don't blend. I'm gonna look into doing that though. I like your idea. If I could blend them with my Friedmans, that'd be pretty badass.
Dude, it's pretty fun. Whenever you get it dialed in and under control, it can be pretty rad.
Yeah. Are you a
No,
you're not a gear hound?
No, I mean, technically I am, but I just don't know. I'm not smart enough to know all this stuff, like I've got a lot of gear. I've got a lot of, I think is cool stuff, but yeah, I'm just not the guy that can really work on them or like sit Indian style and like do crazy stuff. No, I'm not really that guy, but I love equipment.
It's so funny, man. I'm similar. Like I don't know if it was just because I just didn't have any gear when I was a kid or what, but or maybe it's just a genuine lack of curiosity and exploring that stuff. But I just always had the thing that I had, and that's all I had, and I knew how to use that. And it was only really maybe in the last 10 years and I still can't keep any of that shit straight. Like what tube goes with what amp, and I just know the amps that I like, you know what I mean? But I don't know why I like them exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's probably got something to do with it because whenever we first started touring, we didn't have any money. Like I had one amp and one guitar. Yeah. And that's all we had. And then luckily I ended up getting pedals. So it's like the only thing I've learned is what we've added in and learned as a band, So maybe that has something to do with it. I didn't grow up with anything to even know about it. So.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's funny. I don't remember any of my friends that I grew up with being gearhead butt nuts, exploring all that shit. I don't know. Yeah. Well, whatever. Hey, we got there, and now we have walls of Fox AC30. So I think we're doing all right.
Yeah, we figured out how to turn them on.
Yeah, that's half the battle, right? That's probably 80% of the battle. The other thing I saw in that I'd never seen before was that fucking Les Paul with the maple neck and the block inlay. What is that?
Super cool. I found that guitar I think it was in Arizona, Rainbow Guitars in Arizona. I found it online, and we had a good buddy of ours whenever we were first started out touring. He used to put gas in our van and get us show to show, and he had bought Cody a guitar and our other Cody. We started out in a Suburban. We call him Bill. There were 7 of us. But he had bought both of them.
Wait a minute. You had a fan of the band that would put gas in the tank for a long time and buy you guys guitar. That's a good fan.
But
a solid fan.
It was fun. Yeah, super fun. And looking back on it, and now with all the rig, and we wouldn't have got to have the now if he wouldn't have showed up to those arenas and put gas in our van. But looking back, it's like how in the hell guitars. Anyway, I got my tour manager had told us, which is still our same tour manager, and this was 15 years ago. He had told me that he was going to buy me a guitar, and I was like, well, hey, man, I haven't my eyes on one. I know his taste is crazy, so here, tell him I like this one, and he bought me that guitar. I had no clue what it was. I didn't know the research on it, but evidently there was only, a limited run of those maple necks that they had made, and I had no clue until years later. I think we were touring with Shinedown or somebody, and their guys had told me what it really was. And it ended up being a pretty unique guitar. The story I got, which I'm not really sure if it's true or not, but something about whenever wood became an issue and they had to make a limited run of these maple necks, and I think they made 100 of them, and then they switched right back over and they ended up bringing in the rest of the wood, and then I happened to land one of those 100.
Wow, that's very cool, and the flame top and everything is just amazing, super cool. And I'm just always a sucker for block inlay. Anytime you see block inlay on anything, I'm like, ooh, yeah.
It plays like a dream too.
Yeah.
I've got it out on tour with me right now. Yeah, I brought it back.
Oh, nice.
How special it was, I took it to the house and I was like, oh, I don't need to tour with that. And then I let it sit for a few years and I was like, what am I doing? It's that's a funny thing with your more special guitars. You can't just leave them in a closet in your garage because it's guitars are like a house. People need to live in it. Or shit starts getting weird. I'm the guy for that too. It should be played, and if it gets beat up, man, then it is what it is.
Yeah, it's always nice when it's yours. In this day and age of the way they've perfected relicking, I always like it when it's actually your belt buckle that did the damage.
I'm with you, man.
Yeah, it's your sweat that ate through the fucking varnish. Yeah.
for sure.
Where are you guys right now? You're out on the road?
Yeah, Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Did you guys kind of build your fan base by being like a hard touring road dog kind of band?
Absolutely, and we still are. We still do it because I think it's in us. We've done. I started touring when I was 19 or 20, and that's all. We only lost one original guy. We still got the same crew, but yeah, we didn't have anything else to do. But we weren't.
What were those early tours like? You said something about touring in a Suburban.
Yeah, we started out in a Suburban. Yeah, there were 7 of us in a Suburban, and it was just pretty wild. We had a blast though. I mean, broke. Half of us were homeless for a long time. I mean, the drill. But yeah, it was fun, super fun. And looking back on it, now with all the rig and the stuff that we're carrying now, and playing arenas is pretty surreal. But looking back, it's like, how in the hell did we survive any of that? Like, how did we do that?
You can only do that when you're young. You couldn't, I don't know how old you are. I think you're still pretty young, but I could never do that shit now.
Not at all. There's fucking no way. There's absolutely no way.
Yeah. I got to be honest, dude. Like looking at your band, like I said, I've been aware of your band for a very long time and knowing your music, but I have never seen you guys live. And I saw that you guys just sold out 2 nights at Red Rocks, and I was just like getting ready for this interview, watching like live footage of you guys on YouTube and stuff. I didn't know how big you guys are. Like, honestly, I didn't know you were that level of ticket seller. Like, every live video that I was watching from the last, year or whatever is in like a really big venue with big production, big rock show. Like, fucking, it's badass, man. Like, congrats. Like, there was a quote that I read. I don't know if it was you or somebody else in the band, but it was in your bio, and it said, none of us were going to be doctors, and we didn't like school. We just wanted to be out in the world, playing bars and get paid in pizza. And like watching all that footage, I was like, man, these guys are way past the get paid in pizza phase.
Yeah, for sure. Man, it just like, we've always just been this underground band, that like we didn't have a whole lot of commercial success. We started out in the Texas region, and we wanted to break out of that, and it took us a while. Once we broke out, like, we had to grind for a long time. But like you're saying, we were the hard touring band that just really, we kind of captured places one at a time, and it took a long time to do it. It wasn't overnight, but eventually it became, to where it's pretty damn cool to see that still this underground band that it seems like everybody knows about, but not everybody knows about. You don't see us on TV and doing, we're not up there with the rest of them, but it seems like everybody kind of knows,
Right.
But I don't know. I think we're still kind of this underground success.
But it's interesting. Like, is this album and this tour, has this been like a turning point? Like, have you done Red Rocks before, that level of venue, or have things somehow changed with this current cycle?
We did it last year. We did one night last year, and I think it had sold out in a couple of hours. So then I think that's whenever the faith came through. It was like, okay, we should go ahead and give them a couple of nights and see what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just always been on this plane of, it's, luckily we've never really hit a plateau of anything. It's always gotten, one show at a time, one tour at a time. It's gotten more and more successful.
I mean, like
around you.
When I was a kid growing up, like, there was that famous U2 concert at Red Rocks, and I think, live album or whatever. But I remember the video for Sunday Bloody Sunday. They used to play on MTV all the time, and it just, I didn't grow up anywhere near there, so I never actually went there until I played it. But it always had this like kind of mythical status, that venue. Like, what can you talk about that a little bit? Like, what does it mean for you to be able to sell that place out 2 nights?
Oh man, if you can just, if you ever go there as an artist, or even, as a fan, there's something about it. It's a mythical place. And I thought, you hear all these stories about it, and of course you've seen it like on TV. None of us had ever went to a show there. None of us had ever played. We denied quite a few openers. We'd been invited to open. We said, you know what, screw that. We're not going to do it. We're not going until we can headline it. If we're not big enough to headline it,
really?
We're going to play Red Rocks. Yeah, none of us have ever been. So that night that we got to headline it last year was super special to us. And it's got it's up there. It's such a magical place.
I mean, that's interesting. Like, did you guys have, while you were sort of building your fan base and building your career, did you guys have that kind of like I don't know, like a goal in mind for how you wanted to get where you wanted to get? Like that's in most bands would be like, oh, dude, we get to open up for whoever. Let's go, you know?
Yeah, I think that's kind of just saying that back about Red Rocks. That's kind of how we've been the whole time. And it's like, we're going to play our music and hopefully you like it, but we're not going to, succumb to outsider stuff or different, whether there's so many different outside hands in the cookie jar that do stuff, But I think that's just been the attitude the whole time. It's like, hey, let's just do us, continue to do us. We've seen this plane slowly rise since we started. So just stay true to yourself and see how far we can take it.
And you guys put out your own records through 30 Tigers, right? Mm-hmm. That's the current state. Had you been through other, like small labels, big labels before you got to this point?
No, we've always remained independent since we started. But now,
really?
We're still independent, and that's still that same mentality. It's just like, I don't know. And at this point, I mean, we've always been open. We've been approached quite a few times, but I
would assume you must have been, at this stage in your career, you must have had every label on earth come courting at some point.
I don't know, man. It is what it is. I don't know.
Well, like, where do you think that sort of, I don't know, attitude or sense of self for your band comes from? What is that?
Probably where we were raised, around the area that we were. Everybody's really blue collar, hardworking people. So we were kind of raised that way. And maybe, the early stuff of being in the band and how hard it really is. And it takes a while for somebody to pay attention to you. You get this chip on your shoulder. And I think we've always really carried that. And we've carried it with our music and the attitude that we have about, saying no to certain shows whenever it's like you have to be a complete dumbass to say no to stuff. But in order to get to an end goal, you have to say no to a lot of stuff that sounds ridiculous in order to be able to play a couple of nights at Red Rocks, eventually down the road or something. So, and we've always just, putting our nose to the ground and grinding has been our deal.
I mean, it's really interesting because this industry doesn't, like, it's kind of geared. There's a lot of moments when you're on that climb where it's like, if you don't do this, you're never going to get that, if you don't do this, it's going to cost, you have that, or, most musicians, I mean, we've all experienced that thing. That's interesting that you guys would have had the discipline and like the, I don't know, forethought to sort of stay on that path when, really most people, I don't know if I would have, you know what I mean? When you had things dangled in front of you,
Yeah, we would just have to sit down and have a conversation. It's like, well, sticking to our guns has got us this far, whether that was 10 years ago or not. It's like, well, look at us now. We've stuck to our opinion and the way we want to do it, and it's working. So we've always just been like, you know what? We're going to make the decisions. And if hopefully we make the right ones, just go with our gut. And we're doing something right so far. So just keep going with your gut. Yeah,
well, it's working. Keep on doing it. Yeah.
I'm sure those decisions weren't the best, but yeah, it is what it is.
Well, let's talk about your new record. How do you pronounce it, first off? Is it Tornillo or Tornillo?
Tornillo.
Okay. Yeah, I knew I was going to fuck that up. Tornillo. And that's the town where Sonic Ranch is, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
I've heard of Sonic Ranch for years, but I've never been out there. What's that like? Can you talk about that?
Pretty cool, man. So it's just this, I guess it's about an hour or so southeast of El Paso. But it's out on this huge pecan orchard in the middle of nowhere, right on the border of Mexico. So it's a big old, 30s or 40s, something like that, hacienda. So everybody's got their own individual room. There's probably like 5 or 6 studios on premises.
Really?
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 of them right beside the hacienda that you stay at. There's houses, so it's like this major studio compound.
Wait, so are other bands down there working while you're there?
Absolutely, there will be. There'll be bands in while you're there. Going in there, tracking a song or doing something while you're there. We usually go out for about a month. On those last 2 records, we did around 30 days or something like that. But yeah, so there's people in and out. But there's these ladies cook for you. They cook breakfast, lunch and dinner every night. No TVs in the rooms. You get Wi-Fi. There's only one TV on the grounds, and it's in the main common room. So whenever you're out there, like you are in the zone to make music. It's a super special place for sure.
So you're like, how does that impact, versus like, I would imagine you guys have made records in, whatever, Nashville and Austin, LA and places like that. What does that isolation do for you guys as a band?
Yeah, the focus is pretty good because whenever you wake up in the morning, you can't it's like, oh, well, I'm going to go do this, or it's like, nah, you're fixing to play music. That's what, like, there's nothing else for you to do here besides go figure some shit out, Yeah. So we ended up doing a lot more jamming. We just sit in a big circle in the main Neve room and, just figure it out, hash it out. Band
do
style.
you guys go in there, and with your songs rehearsed and ready to go, or do you go in there with a bunch of loose ideas and kind of piece them together?
It's always been pretty loose.
Right.
Even whenever we did the couple of records with Dave Cobb, it was still pretty loose, man. Not too much overproduction. In the earlier days, I think on our first and maybe our second record, we had pre-produced a lot of that stuff. But we figured out that, the kind of the loose, have some sort of structure, but all that magic happens whenever you sit around in a circle with your band, full band, and you start jamming shit out. Like that's whenever our magic happens. And then we would start piecing together the song, really formulate, something where we want to go before we start tracking.
And I know you had an engineer out there, but did you guys produce it yourself? Is it like essentially self-produced?
These last two, 20 self-produced, and the White record was too.
Like, how does that work when you're self-producing? Like, do like one or two of you kind of step forward and maybe self-produce a little more than everybody else, or is it really like a group effort in that sense? Because listening to this latest record, just the sounds and the arrangement of stuff, it really sounds like it's really just, it's a beautiful record, and the tones on it and the sound, like all the performance, everything's so kind of perfect, it just sounds great. It doesn't sound like you're winging it, but it also has that like jammy feel to it. You know what I mean? Where and I was thinking of, like, as I was listening to it, like, man, how do they get to that place when they're all playing together and throwing ideas? Assuming that's how it works,
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. That's a good fucking question. I wish I knew, man. How that happens. It's kind of like writing a song or something. It's like after you're done with it, it's like, how in the hell did we do that? Like,
how do you guys write? Like, how do you guys write? What's your sort of writing process?
Cody does most of the writing, and then I usually have a couple on every record. That's a couple, 3 or 4 that I have in there. But we used to write together a lot, and then we kind of, once we all moved and separated from each other, we used to live together. But once we kind of got families and we started having babies and kids and stuff, it's like we started writing, focusing more on our solitaire writing, I guess. But I don't know, man. Yeah,
so you guys don't live in a band house like the Monkees?
Yeah,
what the fuck?
Yeah, I know, man. Yeah, you're supposed to do that till you die.
Exactly. I thought that was the
so
rock
we
and roll
just
fancy.
come in. We just go in there to the same thing in the common ground, and we start writing down. We had 34 songs for this last record. I think it was 34, and then we sit in a circle and we jam it. And if there's no magic, we say, next song. What's the next one? And then run another one, and then until we find the magic, and then you can. It's pretty easy for us to narrow it down. People always think that that's hard whenever they hear how many songs you have, but it's like you can see the twinkle in everybody's eye. It's pretty clear. Like whenever there's magic in the air, everybody can sniff it out. The
ones that get people's toes tapping. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. It's the same way with the band or a fan. It's the same thing. If it gets you moving, then you got something.
That's interesting. So, wow.
I was going to go back to that arrangements part on you, because you were saying, how do we do that in the circle? And it's like, our philosophy went, and it was like, well, if we're going to self-produce this, then we're going to collectively produce it. There's not going to be one or two that stands up more than the other. And of course, everybody has their own position that they're good at on helping to produce something. Right. But it's like our thing is like, no idea is a bad idea. So, so and so, you're not a dumbass for coming up with this kind of idea. Throw it in the pot. Let's jam it. If it doesn't work, we'll move on to the next idea. So we would just sit there and do it in circles. And of course, it's draining. If you do that so many times, it can be taxing on you. But no idea was a bad idea. Everybody got a shot. Everybody gets a choice and an opinion. And we did a really good job of doing that together because there's a lot of chiefs,
Sure.
a lot of chiefs throwing in ideas can get pretty hard, but we did a pretty good job at it.
And it's a vulnerable place to be in a room with your bandmates, like going, here's my idea, after somebody just wrote like the fucking single or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yes, it's terrible. And then if everybody doesn't like your idea, it's like, you got to be able to, you got to have a short-term memory, kind of like sports, I guess, where it's like, okay, well, if you make an error, if you, make a bad pass, it's like, you better move on to the next one fast.
Yeah. I mean, were there any little magic moments where like an idea got thrown out where like most everybody in the room is kind of like, I don't know about that. And then you jam on it and all of a sudden becomes some other thing. You're like, woo.
Always. Yeah. And it's, usually bases with an idea that's not very cool and you try to be nice and it's like, well, let's just try it. And then it evolves into something. It's cool band stuff.
So I'm assuming you guys tracked like basic tracks together and then what brought in stuff for the, like, I know that like there's a lot of horns on the record. How did that come to be? Like, did you bring in a horn section afterwards? Like, are you touring with those folks now?
We're starting up pretty soon. We bring them to, we don't tour with them every show because God, we've already got a lot of crew and a lot of people already, but we want to. But yeah, we bring them in on specific shows, cool stuff like Red Rocks, the double dates, they'll be there. We're going to fly out throughout the year on a lot of shows for sure.
Yeah. It's a big part of the sound of this record. It
is, man. And the way that the horn stuff started out, we've all kind of wanted horns on there, but we've never had time to be able to do that. And on this past record, we had the time, where we're not touring. We were used to going in for 3 days and going back on tour, going in studio, doing both at the same time. This round, we had more time. There happened to be a mariachi band on premises whenever we went in to record the record. So we were like, cool. Well, we should go ask those guys what they're doing like tomorrow and see if they want to come listen to this song called John Wayne, see if they have anything to add to it. So we came up with the intro to the record, the Tornillo intro. And that's where it was just like, okay, well, this is what we're doing. We're going forward. And then we ended up going into a couple of different studios and we flew some guys in and we started doing, started laying down track and horns towards the end of the record. We had
That's interesting. Like when you bring in some like a horn section like that, is one of you like charting out the horn parts, or are you just like, here's the track, what you got?
That's us. So the lingo we can't speak any music terms. We speak our own music terms, which is blasphemy. But so there was a disconnect at first trying to produce horns whenever you don't know how to speak horn, and then some guys. The guys, we had a couple of different rounds, but who we ended up ultimately sticking with, they could speak our language and they understood us like what we were talking about. So once we got on the same page, man, it was off to the races. Even because a lot of people like to chart, and a lot of people are super technical about music, and that's not us. We're just a bunch of, dudes playing music. But it was pretty cool to see, an initial disconnect between us and a couple of people that we couldn't get on the same page because they're, a certain way, which is great to be that way. And we're just a bunch of shitheads that don't know what we're talking about,
Well, it's interesting because a lot of times like guys that are, like musicians that are used to having things charted, right. When you just go like, go for it, they're like, they can get lost, you know what I mean? Because that's not really the role generally for somebody that does that, you know what I mean? Like the creative side of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I was saying, there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's cool because they can run circles around me,
Sure.
At any given moment, there's just different ways that you can, different styles of doing stuff. And, we happen to be on that, just jam, play it and figure it out kind of style. And that's for us, to each their own.
That's great.
But once we got on the same page with those, those cats, it was really fun to work with the horns and try to produce horns.
Yeah. Speaking of getting on the same page, I love your guys' John Wayne video. It's insane. But I was wondering, watching it, and your guys' dance moves and dance routine stuff is really funny. Or it's really great. I should say it's really great. But I was wondering, when I was watching it, I was like, you guys got a big band. Were there any members of the band that are like, what the fuck are we doing right now? I'm not learning some dance moves, because a couple members looked a little reluctant.
Oh, the whole we had a choreographer there. The whole dance scene got cut down tremendously. Once she saw her first 2 or 3 moves, she was like, okay, everything that I wrote for the routine is going to have to go out the window. We're going to have to start from square one. So yeah, we struggled with that pretty bad. But it was as dumbed down as you could possibly get, for sure.
It was great. And seeing Danny Trejo in there, like, how'd that come to be? How'd you connect with that dude?
I don't even know. We just had these ideas of who we could see playing that role, and we landed on Danny. And he actually was available to be able to do it. So we were like, hell yeah.
Did he like? Had you connected with him before? Like, is he a fan of your band? Because usually stuff like that, it might be like there's a personal connection there.
Never at all. There was no person. It was just a random idea that happened to actually come together. That was it.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's
man.
amazing.
He was super nice too. I don't know if you've ever met him, but he was cool.
No. I've never met him, but I love his taco shop out here.
Yeah,
Eat there all the time.
Yeah.
Let's back up a little. I always like to do a little, like, kind of this is your life section of these interviews. So let's talk about like where you guys are from and what growing up there was like. It's Palestine, Texas, right?
Yeah.
Like where is that in Texas? A gigantic, country of a state.
Yeah.
With lots of different subcultures within it. Like, what's Palestine, Texas all about?
You were definitely right about the subcultures within it. Yeah, so Palestine is like, it's an East Texas, about mid-East Texas town. Yeah, it's a super small town. It's about probably 2.5 hours southeast of Dallas, kind of in the middle of nowhere, close to Tyler, Texas, if anybody's familiar with that. So myself and Cody Cannon, and we kind of grew up together as kids playing ball. So we've known each other, and our families have known each other since we were, 4 or 5 years old, playing baseball. We ended up we went to separate high schools, but we remained really good friends throughout high school. I mean, after high school, we went and lived together. But so we have Cody Tate, and he was from Grapeland, a small town, and his cousin, which is our merch manager from Slocum. We have a guy from Westwood and Palestine. All the guys are from little bitty small towns that we've known each other since, we were kids, pretty much. We grew up together.
But how did you all find music? Like, did you come from musical families, or what sort of, how'd you get there?
Yeah, I didn't really know about music until I learned to play the guitar. My dad taught me and Cody how to play together whenever I was probably like, I don't know, 16 or 17. And then I learned this whole musical history of my mom and my dad. They used to be in bands and write songs. I never really knew that. I was really focused on sports growing up. And I heard my dad could play guitar. So then, all of a sudden this music explosion happened to me, and I took off on the guitar really fast. And then, whenever college didn't really work out, wanted to play ball. Ball didn't work out. So we knew all of our neighbors. We threw a lot of parties, and our neighbors, really liked the music. So me and the two Codys, we were like, well, maybe we should get a bassist and a drummer and see if we can play music. And that was it.
Really? Was Whiskey Myers essentially your first band?
That was it. Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah, that's it.
And how did you start out, like, if you're playing parties and stuff, are you playing cover songs? Like, what are you listening, and what are you sort of like taking your influence from at that point?
Yeah, we were playing all kinds of stuff at that moment. I mean, the three of us would get together and just jam and play for the whole entire party. We'd go to the garage and open up the garage doors and just jam all night. Whatever they wanted to hear, we'd just play. And, they loved it. And it was like, well, let's call Cody's cousin to play bass. He kind of plays guitar. He don't play bass. Let's call him. We'll teach him how to play bass. We didn't know how to play bass. And then we called Jeff Hogg. We knew he was a drummer in band in high school and stuff. We knew he had a drum kit, and it's like, dude, let's jam. And before you know it, we got a first gig within, I guess, a couple of weeks, and it was off to the races.
When did it go from that though to like, making
We're gonna do
records or
this.
thinking about that, that next phase. There's a lot of phases to get to where you are right now, but like, there's the keg party phase, but then there's like, dealing with like, we got to get a booking agent, and we got to play like real clubs, and we're going to play Austin, and we're going to play Dallas. And, when did it turn into that?
Yeah, pretty quick. That first show, the first real show we had, we opened up for a pretty popular guy that was regionally down there, and we had more people there than him. So it was like, well, we always looked up to him, and the guy, the promoter or whatever, he was like, "Hey, I'd love to have you back next week." He's gonna pay us $500, like $300, but he's like, "Hey, you owe me, $375 for your bar tab." we owed him $75 for our first gig, but we got to come back next week. But that's whenever we knew, we were like, holy
Dude,
shit.
that right there was the most important music industry lesson you could have possibly learned.
You're great.
By setting the stage for the rest of your life.
Setting the whole career. We weren't even paying attention. It's like, you're great. Well, you want to come back next week?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Cool. You owe me $75 or something. I don't know if it's 75 or 175. It was something like that. But yeah. But we knew then, it was like, okay, our friends, that they really do like us. Like, people are looking at it. So, and then that just kept happening. And it was like, well, damn, what do bands do? They get they need a vehicle. So we got Cody's mom's Suburban. It was like, that's big enough. She'll let us borrow it, and it's like, well, we need a booking agent. And we were like, so we would just go through CDs, we would look at who books people, who's their booking agent, who's their management, and we just like, Bruce Kalnick, that's still our manager today. I think somebody cold called him. I don't know. He called us back and told us to come to Austin, and we were in the van the next day. We were there in the morning. We just put it together. It was like, hey, this is what they do. This is what we need to do. We need an agent. We need a manager. We didn't know what that really entailed at the time, but that's what we went after, and then we got it.
And can you talk a little about like the Texas music scene? Yeah. Which is a very, I've talked about it endlessly. People listening to this podcast are probably sick of hearing me talk to people about it. But I just am fascinated about it because it really is. It's the only place I've ever seen that has this like insular music scene the way that Texas does, the way that like Texans support Texas music is really, you just don't see it anywhere else. Like, did you guys, initially tap into that as,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, dude. It's like it took us a while to realize what that was. Once we, trying to break out of that was really difficult. But because so many people kind of, they put you in that bubble of a thing, and they don't expect you to be anything else. But the Texas thing is really cool. There's not a whole lot of scenes like that. I didn't grow up around, in the Northwest or whatever, but I'm sure there's several scenes like it. But it's a unique thing that you can travel around, a state or a couple of states endlessly for your career and be very successful at that. There's not a whole lot of places in the world that I know of that you can do that. So it's very unique. And it that's initially how we bloomed as a band, was operating in Texas. And eventually we got to the point to where it was like, okay, man, we want to see the world. How do we do that? And that's a really hard thing to do as a regional band. So, so we said, screw it, let's go to Europe. Let's go put a flag in Europe for a minute and see what we can develop over there. Did that, and we said, well, let's break out. But once you get used to paying your bills a certain way and operating as a business, to break out of that and go play nationally and internationally, you got to kind of change your lifestyle a little bit to be able to do that. So we really, kind of with that same mentality, it's like, well, we're going to do it whether we make money or not. So ready, set, go. It's time to go to New York and Seattle. Let's go take over the rest of it and see what can happen. And slowly but surely, it's worked out for us. I would say fairly good so far.
It's interesting because a lot of like Americana and country flavored bands when they're building, don't even come to the West Coast, much less go to Europe, because of exactly what you're talking about. Because it's so hard. It's so hard.
It's a lot of times it can seem very unachievable. But if you got enough grind in you and you want it, man, just go do it. And a lot of bands have to do that. Like it can suck really bad. It's like, what? We could just stick around what we were doing and we can be just fine. we can carry on and do just good, but it's like it just wasn't good enough for us. And that's nothing against Texas or anything. We love it down there. We still go down there all the time. But, we just wanted to be able to go other places and do the same thing.
Right. And if you fill enough people in a Suburban, you can do it too. I mean, the other side of that is, was there, and maybe you're at it right now, I don't know, but was there a point in all this where you thought like, we're building a catalog of music here. We've got like 5 or 6 records or whatever it is. Like, was there a point where it flipped where you thought like, yeah, this is forever,
Yeah.
Or do you not let yourself feel like, because honestly, like for me, like I still think about like, fuck, what happens if this ends, And I'm like practically like retirement age. Like I don't like I would be unhireable.
What happens if this stops? Yeah, of course, that's all. Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I would think that's in everybody's head. That can always get to you. Like it's like what happens if this does quit?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like it's every now and then we just got kind of stop and pinch myself. It's like, dude, how do we have 18-wheelers and multiple buses and we're playing these arenas? How in the hell did some little band from Texas get to where we're at right now? It's kind of wild to be still independent and to have the things in our career that have happened to us. It's just like, you got to stop and smell the roses for a minute. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's hard to do.
And that's not bragging by no means. That's just saying, pinch yourself sometimes. It's like, this is really, really cool.
It's like our industry doesn't really breed that. And I think that it's good to constantly remind yourself of that, because it is so hard to be in the moment with all this shit and really enjoy it while it happens, because you kind of get conditioned to be like always the next thing, always building to the next thing. Okay, we're here right now, but like it's the thing on the horizon is the thing that we're clawing towards,
Exactly. And we still do that every single day. Since we started this tour, I guess a week and a half ago, we just started up, and it's like, like right now we're not satisfied, and it's like, oh well, we got to, we have to rebuild this set. We're still like, we still feel like we're not good enough. Maybe that never ends. I'm not really sure, but it's a good thing too that we're still not satisfied. So
hopefully that never ends.
I hope not. I hope not.
Dude, thank you so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it. It's great to finally talk to you. I hope we cross paths out there soon.
For sure. Yeah, anytime. Just hit us up and come on out. Where you living at now?
I live in LA.
Yeah. Cool.
But I'll be out and about. All right, that was John Jeffers from Whiskey Myers. Hope you dug it, man. He's a cool dude, fun to talk to. Make sure you go check out their latest record, Tornillo. It's fantastic. And while you're doing that, please spin my new tune, Blacktop White Lines. It's out now. It's out everywhere. Save it to a playlist. Hook your old pal up. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. And that's it for this week, kids. Adios, amigos.